So, let's start. Number 10, the Radium Girls glow-in-the-dark paint. Back in the early 1900s, glowing paint was the height of cool. Factories produced radium-based luminous paint for watches, clocks, and even toys. The workers behind it all? Mostly young women, later nicknamed the Radium Girls. The bosses told them to shape their fine brushes with their lips, dipping them repeatedly into radioactive paint. They were reassured that radium was safe. Some advertisements even called it a health booster, claiming it gave you energy and vitality. Spoiler, it didn't. The women soon began to notice horrifying symptoms. Their teeth started falling out. Their bones weakened to the point of snapping spontaneously. Some developed jaw necrosis, literally called radium jaw, where their jaws crumbled away like chalk. Doctors at first dismissed these effects as syphilis or hysteria, but eventually the connection became undeniable. The paint they were licking like cake frosting was slowly killing them. The scandal erupted into lawsuits, one of the earliest workplace safety battles in the US. The women who sued the companies were often already dying by the time their cases made it to court. The companies fought hard, but the truth won out. Their tragedy forced safety regulations in industries handling radioactive materials. So yeah, a glowing wristwatch was trendy in 1920, but the cost was literal glowing bones. The invention was a lethal fashion accessory that left behind a radioactive legacy. Number 9. The baby cage of the 1930s. Picture this. You live in a cramped city apartment, maybe on the 6th floor, and you've got a baby. Playgrounds? Too far. Parks? Too crowded. What's the solution? According to some 1930s inventors, you strap your kid into a wire cage and hang them out the window like a potted plant. And yes, people actually bought these things. The baby cage was marketed as a way to give infants fresh air and sunshine. In urban areas, the cage was essentially a small wire box that you bolted to your window frame. You'd then stick your baby inside and let them dangle several stories above the street, directly above honking cars and clouds of exhaust. Newspaper clippings show mothers casually sipping tea while their kids hung outside like dangling laundry. Safety-wise, it was a nightmare. Sure, the cages were made of sturdy metal, but bolts and screws fail, and let's be honest, even if it held, the optics were horrifying. Imagine looking up from the sidewalk and seeing a baby suspended over your head in a bird cage. Eventually, common sense and building safety laws killed the baby cage trend. It's proof that desperation and bad design can create one of the most reckless parenting tools in history. Number 8. The iron lung car heater. In the early days of motoring, heating your car was a luxury. Before modern heating systems, winters meant you froze behind the wheel, wearing layers like you were trekking the Arctic. Then came a brilliant idea. What if you used the car's own exhaust to warm the inside? Yes, inventors decided to pipe literal engine fumes into the passenger cabin. This contraption, sometimes nicknamed the iron lung heater, worked by channeling exhaust gases through a heating system that vented into the car. At first it seemed cozy. Drivers no longer had to scrape frost off their own breath while steering. But there was a problem. Exhaust contains carbon monoxide, a colorless, odorless gas that can kill you in minutes. The result? People would start their drive feeling toasty, only to nod off permanently before reaching their destination. In fact, a significant number of unexplained roadside deaths during the 1920s and 30s are now thought to have been caused by these heaters. Basically, they turned your Model T into a mobile gas chamber. The invention was eventually abandoned, but not before plenty of people fell victim. Nowadays, we complain about weak car heaters taking forever to warm up. At least they don't quietly assassinate us during the commute. Number 7, the Miasma Mask. Before modern germ theory, people believed miasma, or bad air, caused disease. The solution? Weird contraptions designed to filter or neutralize foul smells. Some inventors took this belief to extreme levels, creating bizarre masks filled with herbs, perfumes, or chemicals to cleanse the air. In practice, these things often did the opposite. Some designs funneled air through sponges soaked in vinegar. Others had metal contraptions with burning incense chambers. The idea was that pleasant-smelling air would cancel out sickness. The reality, breathing through damp sponges or chemical-soaked cloths made people dizzy, nauseous, and sometimes poisoned. Imagine trying to cure plague exposure by strapping a glorified potpourri bomb to your face. The most famous version, of course, was the plague doctor mask, the long bird beak stuffed with herbs. While creepy enough to star in a horror movie, it didn't actually stop disease. Worse, some designs trapped heat and reduced airflow, suffocating the wearer faster than the bad air ever could. Eventually, germ theory replaced miasma theory, and these gadgets went extinct. But for centuries, people sincerely thought perfume filters could outwit the Black Death. It's one of history's most dangerous examples of pseudoscience disguised as innovation. Number 6. The safety coffin. One of the biggest fears in the 18th and 19th centuries was being buried alive. Medical science wasn't great at telling the difference between dead and deeply unconscious, so inventors decided to get creative, designing safety coffins. These were caskets rigged with bells, flags, or air tubes so the dead could signal if they woke up underground. Sounds clever, right? Except most of them didn't work. The strings tied to bells would jam or get tangled in the shifting earth. Some air tubes collapsed under the weight of soil, and in cases where the bell did ring, gravediggers often assumed it was wind, rodents, or pranksters. Even worse, some designs supposedly sped up suffocation by pulling fresh air out instead of pushing it in. There are a few accounts of safety coffins working, but far more of them failing spectacularly. Imagine clawing at the lid, desperately pulling a cord, only to realize the contraption was jammed shut. That's not a safety feature. That's an express ticket to a worse death. Today, premature burial isn't exactly a top concern, but safety coffins remain a darkly comic reminder of how fear and faulty engineering can collide. These weren't saving lives, they were adding a bell-ringing sideshow to an already grim situation. Number 5. Lead in everything. For centuries, lead was considered a miracle material. It was cheap, easy to mold, and showed up in everything from pipes to face powders. But the real disaster came in the 20th century when inventors decided to mix lead into gasoline, paint, makeup, plumbing, and even children's toys. The message was, lead is progress. The reality was, lead is poison. Inhaling or ingesting lead slowly wrecks your brain and nervous system. It damages memory, reduces impulse control, and lowers IQ. But for decades, no one cared. Lead gas gave cars better performance. Lead paint was vibrant and durable. Makeup companies even advertised the pure white glow of lead-based powders, never mentioning the small detail that it rotted your skin and teeth. By the mid-1900s, the effects were undeniable. Entire generations of children exposed to lead poisoning showed cognitive impairments. Cities with high lead use saw spikes in violence and neurological disorders. Scientists now believe lead exposure influenced everything from crime rates to public health crises. Even though most countries eventually banned it in consumer goods, the damage had been done. An invention that was hailed as a wonder material turned out to be one of the most catastrophic public health experiments in history. Number 4. The trepanation drills of the 18th century. Trepanation, drilling a hole into someone's skull, is one of humanity's oldest medical practices. In the 18th century, inventors decided to make it more efficient by designing hand-cranked skull drills. The idea was that relieving pressure in the head could cure headaches, epilepsy, or mental illness, but in practice, it mostly just killed people. These drills looked like woodworking tools, except instead of boring into oak, they were boring into human brains. The process was slow, painful, and wildly dangerous. Without anesthesia, antiseptics, or an understanding of brain function, trepanation was essentially surgery with a carpenter's toolkit. Survival was rare, and even when patients lived, infections or brain damage often followed. Some surgeons swore by it, claiming miraculous recoveries, and in reality, those recoveries were probably just luck or placebo effects. Worse, charlatans picked up the practice, drilling holes in anyone willing to pay. What was supposed to be a medical breakthrough became a gruesome sideshow of human suffering. The hand-cranked skull drill stands as a terrifying reminder of how medicine once blurred the line between innovation and torture. Thankfully, modern neurosurgery doesn't resemble a carpentry project gone wrong. Number 3. The jetpack that burned your legs. In the 1960s, the space age was booming, and inventors dreamed of putting jetpacks on everyone's backs. The concept, a personal flying machine powered by literal rocket engines. The reality, flaming exhaust blasting directly onto your legs with a side order of second-degree burns. The most famous version, the Bell rocket belt, could lift a person a few feet off the ground for about 20 seconds. That's it. 20 seconds less than the time it takes to microwave a Pop-Tart. It looked amazing in demonstrations, but pilots often ended up scorched, bruised, or in the hospital. The fuel tanks were tiny, the thrust was unstable, and landing wasn't so much a landing as a glorified faceplant. The US military tested them, Hollywood featured them, and engineers swore they'd be the transportation of the future, but the drawbacks were obvious: too heavy, too hot, and way too dangerous. Testers described singed clothing, melted boots, and smashing into walls. Imagine strapping fireworks to your spine and hoping the laws of physics take a coffee break. That's what flying a jetpack felt like. Jetpacks never took off, literally, but the dream lingers in pop culture. Every few years, someone announces a new, improved design, but the same problems always return: low fuel, high heat, and a serious chance of roasting yourself midair. The future everyone wanted turned out to be better left in comic books. Number 2, the vibrating belt weight loss machine. In the 1950s and 60s, gyms and beauty salons had a strange fad. Machines that promised to shake the fat right off you. You'd step into a belt contraption, wrap it around your waist, and let it jiggle your midsection like jello in an earthquake. The pitch? Effortless weight loss, no sweat required. The belts vibrated with surprising force, leaving users red and sore. Instead of melting fat, they caused bruises, spinal strain, and in some cases, internal injuries. Yet they became a cultural craze. Magazines promoted them, celebrities posed with them, and entire gyms filled with rows of people standing motionless while their bodies wobbled like human maracas. Of course, the science was nonsense. Fat doesn't just shake away. Real fitness requires exercise and diet. But the machines sold well because they tapped into the eternal human dream. Results without effort. People wanted to believe a belt could do all the work while they flipped through magazines. Eventually the fad collapsed, but not before leaving countless customers with medical bills instead of smaller waistlines. Today, the vibrating belt is remembered as one of the clearest examples of how the fitness industry thrives on shortcuts that don't work and sometimes actively hurt you. Basically, it was the flat tummy tea of its era, just with more bruises. Number 1, the Blizzard of Asbestos. For decades, asbestos was considered a wonder material, fireproof, durable, and cheap. So companies used it for everything: insulation, clothing, floor tiles, and even children's toys. And then came the ultimate bad idea: fake snow for movies and holiday decorations. The Wizard of Oz famously showered its actors in asbestos snow during filming, while Christmas ads encouraged families to sprinkle it around the tree. The problem, of course, is that asbestos fibers lodge in the lungs and cause deadly diseases like mesothelioma. Actors breathed it in on set, kids tossed handfuls of it during the holidays, and factory workers handled it with zero protection. Imagine decking the halls with poison flakes that were basically mid-century holiday cheer. The fake snow was especially tragic. Families would scatter it in living rooms, kids would make snow angels in it, and no one had any idea they were inhaling a carcinogen that would slowly kill them decades later. It wasn't just unsafe, it turned holiday magic into a health time bomb. By the time the dangers became undeniable, the damage was already done. Asbestos is now banned in many places, but traces still linger in old buildings, attics, and film reels. Looking back, it's surreal. Something marketed as cozy family fun became one of the most catastrophic health hazards ever packaged for home use. Merry Christmas. Here's lung disease in a box. Thank you for watching and sticking till the end. We've got plenty more videos coming in the future. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss them. See you in the next one.